This book reminds me of an incident from several years ago. Those days, Asaram was at the zenith of his popularity. His devotees would go from door to door and hand out copies of magazines, pamphlets, etc. that eulogized his divine powers and credited him with all sorts of miracles. No wonder, when such is the promotion effort. The collections from his satsangs were so huge that the cash and other offerings and gold ornaments, etc., had to be transferred in helicopters to his main den in Gujarat. There must be other dens also, but mainly his headquarters were supposed to be in Gujarat. One day, as luck would have it, his devotees came to my place and offered all that promotional stuff. I politely declined, saying that I did not believe in Babas and these miracles and all that stuff. I am not into that. This offended them so much that one of them became abusive. Fortunately, his violence remained verbal. He did not attack me physically. Nobody did. But they did give vent to their holy spleen before flouncing away. Now, what makes these people unthinking devotees of a person of dubious credentials? None of these people actually know about his real background. For them, he is a guy with longish beard and all that stuff, and he becomes a saint and they start following him. I don't know how they do this. I had watched Asaram on TV a couple of times and was really put off. I didn't like him or the way he was speaking on the television. He appeared to me as a shallow man who used religious shibboleths to project an image that wouldn't fool any sensible person. Frankly, to me, he appeared a shady person, which this book confirms. The book reveals Asaram's criminal background dating back to his teens, perhaps even earlier, but at least about his teens there are some incidents about his association with some shady dealings, illegal, illicit, whatever you want to call them. He came from a family of petty shopkeepers who made their money through questionable activities. They had a facade for some legitimate business, but behind that facade, something else used to go on, which is mentioned in this book. I'm not adding anything from my side. It's a wonder how he evaded arrest for murder of a person during his younger years. In fact, he should have been arrested, but he just went scot-free. Obviously, he lived a charmed life until his karma caught up with him in the person of DCP Lamba and his team. DCP Lamba is the author of this book. Ajay Lamba was Deputy Commissioner of Police in Jodhpur when Asaram was accused of sexually exploiting a minor girl. He narrates in first person the story of Asaram's arrest and conviction. A minor girl was raped in the Thug's Jodhpur ashram, but her parents preferred to file an FIR in Delhi. Maybe because they felt safer over there. I don't know the real reasons, and something is mentioned in the book, and that sounds convincing enough. When the case was transferred to Lamba's jurisdiction, Lamba and his team discovered that this was not Asaram's one-off offense. The fellow was a serial offender and had a network of men and women who ensnared unsuspecting children for his pleasure. Women also, but generally nubile girls. Media reports also mentioned bodies of young boys found around Asaram's ashrams in a couple of states, I think. It was there in the media. There were rumors that the boys were killed for the purpose of performing tantric rituals. Deeply moved by the girls' plight, Lamba and his team, he called his team as Tough 20. They decided to pursue the case to its logical end. Of course, they were aware of Asaram's powerful connections in Delhi and various states. If you, even on TV, if you have watched his so-called satsangs, you must have noticed that some powerful politician, a minister or a local MLA, MP would be present in that satsang as a chief guest or some such thing. He would be there. So, Lamba and his team faced challenges at every step. Worse still, public opinion was strongly against the police action. A battery of lawyers helped Asaram and his son, who was his partner in crime. How did they help him? First of all, they enabled him to elude the police, and then they, as they do, putting in all sorts of legal hurdles and all that stuff. Anyway, DCP Lamba and his team first of all used tact and guts to manage the public opinion, which was important because if the public opinion went against them, then life would have been becoming very difficult for the police people to do their job. Then they neutralized the pressures from various groups and power centers, phone calls and all sorts of veiled threats, suggestions, blandishments, all that stuff. Every tactic was used to stop the investigations, or at least to put hurdles in the path of these investigating officers. Ultimately, they arrested the criminal father-son duo. And after a nerve-wracking trial, Asaram was convicted. If you read the book, the narrative is crisp, racy and thrilling, and he does not dawdle at any place, trying to pad up the things. No, he doesn't do it, and it's really absolutely readable stuff which he narrates. Not just readable, of course. After I finished reading the book, I wondered why people fall for such silver-tongued rogues who, just because they are wearing some holy garb or they appear in holy garbs or all that paraphernalia, their beards and all that stuff. One can understand the illiterate and the poor being gullible enough to even worship such false saints. But when educated and well-off persons whose awareness levels ought to be high enough mortgage their brains to such criminals, one really wonders about the state of our society. We all should. It's happening even now. Even now, all sorts of sadhus and sadhvis get away with God knows what all. And some of The stuff is unspeakable. That's going on. And media too tires out after a while pursuing their misdeeds. Of course, Asaram is not an exception. He's not, as I said, there are other holy people doing all that stuff. Countless criminals have been peddling false spiritualism and indulging in sexploitation of women and children. Prominent in this rogues list is, of course, Gurmeet Ram Rahim, who raped women in his cave or gufa almost daily. His consort, Honeypreet, who addressed him as Papa, helped him in satisfying his lust. Now, this is, what? What do they tell how do they lure these victims? They tell them that Baba ki kripa hogi, that Baba will bless you, that Baba will solve all your problems and you will live a happy life ever after if once you meet Baba alone. Alone means unprotected. And what happens after that is certainly not kripa. Then there is Nityananda, another saffron-robed darling of the gullible. He made full use of his good looks to charm female devotees into sleeping with him. This went on for a pretty long time, first as rumors, then eventually he was caught in the age-old act with an actress, which, sort of opened up the box of the stuff that hit the ceiling. Anyway, then if we go back a bit in time, there was Chandraswamy. He was also referred to as Godman. He had powerful political connections. Hollywood stars, British politicians, and other celebrities were beneficiaries of his supposedly spiritual advice. A consummate wheeler-dealer he was. He dealt with politicians and was a go-between for many deals, murky or otherwise. But finally he was arrested in a fraud case. There have been whispers that he was suspected of having a hand in Rajiv Gandhi's assassination. We do not know for sure, but those people who are talking, they're talking in media. Then there are these gurdwaras, and sex crimes are not unknown there either. If those who read Punjab related news and all that, they must be aware of the Moga case, which hit the media headlines when two minor Dalit girls were raped by Manjeet Singh, a Gurdwara priest, and his associates. Again, according to another newspaper, in Glasgow, 2 Sikh priests were jailed for raping of all the people a prostitute. They didn't want to pay for the services, I believe. In Shahjahanpur of Uttar Pradesh, a Nepali woman was gang raped by sevadars inside a Gurdwara. And these are only a few instances. Many others have been happening in Punjab and nearby places. But let me assure you, such lowly characters in holy garbs are not peculiar to India or any one particular community. They are everywhere. For example, in Pakistan, certain madrasas have attained notoriety for child abuse. The case of Moid Khan, a cleric, caught media attention when he was accused of sodomy and pedophilia. A report from Karachi mentions one Maulvi Ghulam Abbas Seto, who was accused of sexually exploiting children in a seminary. Again, in Pakistan's Manchera district, a madrasa teacher named Shamsuddin and his 3 associates were charged with sodomizing a 10-year-old child. Reports of such horrendous crimes have been coming from Kasur, and according to Associated Press and other media outlets, child abuse is endemic in Pakistan's religious schools. Even some other local Pakistan media outlets also have been highlighting this murky aspect of the spiritual life. Similarly, Catholic priests in India and abroad have been charged with horrendous sexual crimes. For example, some rape and murder cases involving priests and nuns in Kerala caught the national media's attention recently. And it's not just in Kerala such things happen, they happen in other parts of India too, wherever a vulnerable person can be victimized by the men in holy garbs. According to an Associated Press investigation, about 1,700 Catholic priests and staff who have been accused of child abuse live freely in the United States of America. And now, the United States of America is supposed to be a well-governed country. We always expect the advanced countries. We have that sort of romantic vision of Western countries, advanced countries having a better police force, better law enforcement agencies, better ethics, professional ethics, etc. But then even there, such crimes have been happening and they still are. It's not just that it's over after mentioning this 1,700 please. There are other cases too. So we can be, we should be afraid actually. We should be afraid that the rot in holy reals is universal. It is not something which is going to go away anytime soon and is limited to any particular area. In India at least, DCP Lamba has shown how it is possible to banish this menace, no matter what hurdles come in the path of law enforcement. And if DCP Lamba can do it, so can other law enforcement personnel, whether in India or Pakistan or anywhere else. It is possible, right? And that should become a template. If you read this book, the guts he has shown, the techniques he has used, and the way he has handled the various vested interests as well as the public, it is a very good lesson very good example for other policemen to follow in the subcontinent at least. Well, thank you for watching this one. I'll come back with another episode. Bye-bye.